The first thing I heard was the sound of wood cracking beneath me, followed by my neighbor laughing so hard that she had to grab the edge of the mattress to keep from falling over. 1 second, I was tightening the last bolt on her new bed, and the next, I was lying flat on my back staring at the ceiling while she stood over me with the most mischievous smile I had ever seen. Then she reached down, offered me her hand, and said that maybe we should test the bed properly before deciding whether the assembly was finished. If you believe kindness can change a person's life, that forgiveness can heal wounds, and that everyone deserves hope and a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who might need a little encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel. Sometimes a simple act of kindness becomes the beginning of a story neither person expected. My name is Everett Lawson, and until that Saturday morning, I had never imagined that helping someone carry a flat-packed bed upstairs would become one of the most important things I had ever done. I lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where people waved from driveways but rarely knew what was happening behind one another's front doors. I had moved there 2 years earlier after a difficult period in my life and had deliberately kept my world small. I went to work, came home, worked on old furniture in my garage, and spent most weekends restoring things that other people had decided were no longer worth saving. There was something comforting about broken furniture. A loose hinge could be tightened. A cracked table could be sanded. A damaged chair could be rebuilt. People were more complicated. My neighbor, Celeste Monroe, had moved into the house beside mine 3 months earlier. She was in her early 30s, worked remotely as a graphic designer, and always seemed to be carrying too many things at once. She had a warm smile, but there was a tiredness behind it that I noticed even before we became friends. One afternoon, I saw her struggling with a large cardboard box near her driveway. She tried to drag it toward the house, stopped, looked at the instructions taped to the side, and sighed as though the box had personally offended her. I offered to help, expecting nothing more than a polite thank you. Instead, she admitted that she had ordered a new bed because her old one had finally broken. She had been sleeping on a temporary mattress for several weeks, and the thought of assembling another piece of furniture alone was making her miserable. I told her I had plenty of experience with furniture and could help. She hesitated for a moment before accepting. What I didn't know then was that the bed wasn't simply a purchase. It was a symbol of everything she was trying to rebuild. As we carried the pieces inside, I noticed that the house was still half empty. There were unopened boxes along the walls, framed photographs leaning against furniture instead of hanging on it, and a few plants that looked like they were doing their best to survive. Celeste apologized for the mess, but I told her there was nothing to apologize for. A house didn't become a home the moment someone moved in. Sometimes it took months. Sometimes it took years. We spent the next hour assembling the frame. She held pieces while I tightened screws, and occasionally we laughed when we discovered that the instructions seemed to have been written by someone who had never actually assembled a bed. Celeste was funny in a dry, unexpected way. She could make a complaint sound like a joke, and every time she laughed, the tiredness in her face seemed to disappear for a few seconds. Eventually, she told me why she had moved. Her marriage had ended badly. Not dramatically, not with a story that belonged in newspapers, but in the slow, painful way that some relationships disappear. Her husband had gradually stopped being a partner and started treating her like an inconvenience. He criticized everything she did, made her question her decisions, and eventually convinced her that she was difficult to love. When the marriage finally ended, Celeste moved away from the city because she needed somewhere she could breathe without constantly wondering whether she was doing something wrong. I didn't know what to say, so I told her something my father had once told me after my own life fell apart. He said that sometimes leaving isn't failure. Sometimes leaving is the first proof that you still believe your life can become better. Celeste became quiet after that. Then she smiled and said that perhaps I understood more than I let people see. She was right. I had never told her about my own past. I had been engaged once. Her name was Marin, and for years I believed we were building a future together. Then, after my father became seriously ill, I became consumed by work, hospital visits, and responsibilities I didn't know how to handle. Maren eventually left, telling me that she felt like she was standing beside a locked door and waiting for me to let her in. I couldn't blame her. But after she left, I decided that caring about someone only gave them another way to hurt me. So I stopped letting people get close. Maybe that was why I understood Celeste. By early afternoon, the bed was finally standing. We stepped back to admire it. The frame looked sturdy, the wooden headboard matched the rest of the room, and the fresh mattress made the space look completely different. Celeste climbed onto the bed and bounced once, testing it. She smiled proudly. Then she looked at me. I should have known that expression meant trouble. She suddenly grabbed my wrist, pulled me forward, and pushed me backward onto the mattress. I landed with a startled laugh, completely caught off guard. Celeste stood beside the bed, trying desperately not to laugh. Then she leaned over me and announced that there was only one way to know whether we had assembled it correctly. She gave the mattress another playful push. The wooden frame made a loud squeak. For a second, we stared at each other. Then we both burst out laughing. Celeste declared that the bed had failed inspection, and I told her that if she kept jumping on it, no bed in the world would survive. She laughed even harder, and for the first time since I had met her, I saw her looking genuinely happy. But the laughter didn't last. When she climbed down, her expression changed. She looked toward the photographs still leaning against the wall. One of them showed her standing beside her former husband. She picked it up, stared at it, and then slowly placed it inside an empty box. She told me she had kept that photograph because she thought throwing it away meant admitting that the entire marriage had been a mistake. I told her that keeping it didn't mean she still belonged to that life either. She asked how I knew. I told her that I had once kept an old engagement ring in a drawer for 3 years because I thought getting rid of it meant admitting I had wasted those years. Celeste looked at me with an understanding that made me uncomfortable. She said maybe we were both better at fixing furniture than fixing ourselves. I laughed, but the words stayed with me. Over the following weeks, our friendship grew naturally. We had coffee on Saturday mornings, helped each other with small projects, and occasionally ate dinner on her front porch while talking about everything and nothing. I learned that Celeste loved old movies, hated folding laundry, and had a habit of buying plants whenever she felt sad. She learned that I could repair almost anything except my own stubbornness. But just when life seemed to be settling into something peaceful, Maren returned. She contacted me unexpectedly and asked to meet. She told me that she had been thinking about everything that happened between us and wondered if we could talk. I agreed, even though part of me was afraid. After the meeting, I felt confused. Maren apologized for leaving during the hardest period of my life. I apologized for shutting her out. We both admitted that we had been younger and less capable of handling pain than we believed. When I returned home, Celeste saw me from her porch. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. But it wasn't convincing. Over the next few days, I became distant. I thought I was protecting everyone from confusion, but Celeste interpreted my silence as rejection. She stopped asking me to come over. Our morning coffees disappeared. The easy laughter between us was replaced by polite waves. Then one afternoon, I found a small envelope tucked beneath my front door. Inside was a note from Celeste. She wrote that she didn't blame me for needing time, but she had finally learned something important. She didn't want to become someone's temporary comfort while they figured out what they truly wanted. She had spent too many years accepting less than she deserved, and she wasn't going to do it again. Those words hit me harder than anything Maren had said. I realized that I had spent years believing that avoiding pain was the same as protecting my heart. It wasn't. It was simply another form of loneliness. I went to Celeste's house that afternoon. She opened the door but didn't invite me inside. I told her I wasn't there to make promises I couldn't keep. I wasn't there to ask her to wait for me. I was there because she deserved honesty. I told her that meeting Marin had helped me understand that our past didn't always need to become our future. Sometimes closure wasn't about returning to what had been broken. Sometimes it was about finally understanding why it had broken. Then I told Celeste the truth. Somewhere between assembling her bed and laughing over that ridiculous squeak, she had become the person I looked forward to seeing every day. She had reminded me that kindness didn't have to be a transaction. Friendship didn't have to come with conditions. And love didn't have to feel like losing yourself. Celeste didn't immediately forgive me. She told me she needed time. I respected that. A week later, she knocked on my door carrying 2 cups of coffee. She said she had decided that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting what happened. It meant deciding that the past no longer deserved to control the future. I smiled and asked whether that meant I was forgiven. She said mostly. I asked what the missing part was. She told me I still owed her a proper bed inspection because the last one had been interrupted. I laughed so hard that I nearly spilled my coffee. We walked over to her house together. The bed was still there, exactly where we had assembled it. The photograph of her old marriage was gone. In its place, she had hung a simple picture of the empty house from the day she moved in. She said it reminded her of who she had been before she learned how to rebuild. I told her that maybe rebuilding wasn't about becoming the person you used to be. Maybe it was about becoming someone stronger. She smiled. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and looked at me with that same mischievous expression from the day we first assembled it. She patted the mattress beside her. I sat down carefully. She bounced once. The bed squeaked. We looked at each other. Then we laughed. Not because the bed had passed inspection, but because we finally understood what the moment meant. We had both spent years believing that broken things were proof of failure. Now we knew better. A broken heart could heal. A damaged life could be rebuilt. A lonely person could find a friend. A mistake could become a lesson. And sometimes the person who helps you rebuild something as ordinary as a bed can quietly become the person who helps you rebuild your faith in life. Celeste eventually told me that the bed had never really been about furniture. It was about having one place in the world where she felt safe again. I told her that I had never realized how much I needed a place like that too. Months later, the neighborhood changed in small ways. We started organizing weekend gatherings where neighbors helped one another with repairs, moving boxes, garden projects, and whatever else people were struggling with. Celeste called it the Community Kindness Project. I joked that I was only there because they needed someone who knew how to assemble furniture. But deep down, I knew the truth. We weren't just repairing furniture. We were reminding one another that nobody had to rebuild alone. And Celeste and I? We didn't rush anything. We let trust grow slowly. We let friendship become stronger before asking it to become something more. Eventually, without some dramatic declaration or perfect movie moment, we realized that we had already built something far more valuable than a relationship based on loneliness or fear. We had built something based on choice. Before the story ends, I want to ask you something. What is one thing in your life that you once thought was broken beyond repair but eventually taught you how to become stronger? Leave a meaningful comment below, because someone reading your words today may be struggling with the exact same thing and may need to know that their story isn't finished yet. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Because sometimes kindness arrives disguised as a simple favor. Sometimes forgiveness arrives after we finally stop running from the truth. And sometimes the greatest second chance isn't getting back what we lost. It's discovering that what comes next can be even better. Celeste taught me that a home isn't defined by walls, furniture, or perfect memories. A home is the place where you can finally breathe, laugh without fear, and believe that tomorrow might be worth looking forward to. And sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to help you build something new.